Awesome. All right. Well, we do have some news to get to. I think we'll start with actually the story of the day, which is AMD, and by the day I mean like this was announced kind of last Thursday, or WCCF Tech broke this last Thursday, shortly after our show went off the air. And that's that Ryzen 7000 Raphael desktop CPUs and X670 motherboards will reportedly launch on September 15th, and the announcement could come on August 29th. So we'll have some official details, hopefully by the end of this month. Now, for those that don't know, AMD Ryzen 7000 is the upcoming Zen 4 architecture based on 5nm process. So these will be the first 5nm desktop chips. There's already been some 5nm fab technology out in the wild. I know NVIDIA has done some 6nm stuff with Samsung, and I believe Apple on their latest M2 was 5nm. So not the first products to market, but definitely some of the first. And we already have some part numbers. Now, these are all preliminary specs. Nothing in this list is anywhere close to official. But we can make some fairly educated guesses based on products that have been announced or discussed in the past by AMD. And I think we'll start at the top and go to the bottom. So we've got the Ryzen 9 7950X, which is a 16-core, 32-thread CPU. This will obviously be the flagship chip with a single-core max clock of 5.5 gigahertz. Now, do keep in mind that is probably the precision boost overclock single thread, like 1 or 2 cores boosting to that level. But that is still an insanely high clock for a stock out-of-the-box CPU. This will have a TDP upwards of 170 watts, and this last piece is probably the most contentious because I have seen reports anywhere from around $700 to upwards of $1,000 for the 7950X. Now, the 5950X, the CPU that this is directly replacing, was also 16-core, 32-thread, was the flagship CPU for Zen 3. That one was $799. So it's kind of interesting that WCCF Tech is reporting that this will only be $700, but other outlets are reporting it could be well over $800, over the asking price of the previous generation chip. So, yeah, who knows on that one. The other really interesting thing is we do know that these will be chiplet-based CPUs, with the 5950X and the 7900X coming in with 2 chiplets. It appears that the Ryzen 7 CPUs and the Ryzen 5 will be single chiplet units based on the cache count, or the reported cache count. As you can see, the Ryzen 9 CPUs, 7900X and 7950, will both have 64 megabytes of L3 cache and 16 megs of L2, with 12 megs of L2 for the 7900X. And then we drop down to 32 megs of L3 and 8 megs of L2 for the 7800X and 7700X. Now, these parts do drop all the way down to as little as $200, which is definitely good news based on the fact that Zen 3 really didn't get much below about $270 on the entry level with the 5600X and the 5600. So hopefully, now that Intel is back in the game, that will actually force AMD to come back down to earth slightly in pricing. That and the silicon shortage is definitely on the downward slope of unavailability. So, man, I think as soon as Raptor Lake is announced, which is 13th gen Intel, which we're expecting maybe as soon as October, man, it could be an awesome time to be a CPU buyer if you're in the market for a new platform. But yeah, Wattages between 65 and 170 watts. Price ranges between 200 and 700, and anything from 6 to 16 cores on AMD's all-new 5nm architecture. It's kind of what you need to know.
There you go. Yeah, it'll be interesting to kind of see where prices land once everything's announced. And yeah, it does sort of seem, you know, on their price chart here, like the tilde sort of implies like a little bit of, you know, flexibility on the price, but who knows exactly, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, one thing we do know about the Zen 4 architecture, again, not only will this be chiplet based, but they get 1 megabyte of L2 cache per core that they have on the CPU. And that is all shared across the entire architecture, regardless of what core count the CPU has. They're all interconnected with Infinity Fabric. So that should give, AMD is saying, upwards of about 15% IPC improvement generation over Zen 3, which is also quite the claim as far as improved speeds go.
So what do you think? AMD gonna just be bursting our mailbox wide open with these bad boys?
Well, one would hope at this point in my career. Yeah, who knows? But yeah, I haven't been in close talks with AMD. AMD does go through a PR company, and sometimes getting them to respond to emails can be a little bit tricky on the media side of things. So I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful I can get some chips at launch. I have been in contact with Intel as of late as well, and I'm hoping to be a part of their launch of Raptor Lake for hands-on reviews and things like that. Also had some other plans with Intel that hopefully will not fall through, but that's nothing that I can discuss yet. So.